Operator, this is Madeline Whitcomb at 488 Lakefront Drive. There is a man sailing a wooden vessel recklessly on the lake. He has no safety equipment. He is operating under the influence. It is a danger to everyone out here. Please send someone immediately.
That was the 911 call. It came in at 6:12 on a Saturday morning in August. The man on the wooden boat was me. The lake was mine. The safety equipment was on board, exactly where my father had installed it in 1962. The HOA president who placed the call did not know any of those facts. She also did not know what was coming. 15 minutes from the moment she dialed 3 digits, she would no longer be on the board of the Pequot Shores Marina. No longer own the free dock slip her yacht was tied to. No longer be the woman who decided who could sail what on my family's lake. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment. My name is Wes Holbrook. My family has owned Lake Pequot in Carroll County, New Hampshire, in full deed including the lake bed, since 1857. The lake is 420 acres. My great-great-grandfather, Asa Holbrook, bought it from a logging company that had cleared the surrounding hills and decided the land was worthless without trees. Asa did not need trees. He needed a lake. He had grown up on the coast in Portsmouth, and he wanted his children and grandchildren to know how to sail. I am the 5th generation. My wife Connie has owned a small bookshop on Main Street in Wolfboro for 22 years. Our sons Garrett and Tate are grown. Garrett is 37, a marine architect in Portsmouth. Tate is 34, an organic farmer in Maine. They both grew up on this lake. They both still call it home. My father, Cyrus Holbrook, died 5 years ago this past September. He was 86. He had taught me everything I know about wind, water, and timber. In 1962, the summer I turned 2 years old, my father hand-built a Lightning-class wooden sailboat out of pine he had felled on our own land. The boat is hull number 4847. He named her Felicity. She is 62 years old, and she still floats true. I have sailed her every morning at 6 o'clock from May through October since 1977. After my father died, I kept sailing her in the morning because I could not figure out how to stop. The lake at sunrise, the cold mist rising off the water, the call of a loon from the South Cove, the bite of a New Hampshire wind on the back of my neck, was the closest I could get to him. There is a particular Yankee stillness on a New Hampshire lake at 5:45 in the morning that does not exist anywhere else on earth I have stood. The white birches on the eastern shore turn silver. The bass do not jump yet. The only sound is the occasional small slap of water against the wooden hull. My father had taught me, when I was 9 years old, to listen to that sound for a full 30 seconds before I set the sail. He said it was the lake telling you what kind of day was coming. He was almost always right. In 1998, a developer named Hamish Drennan subdivided the 80 acres adjacent to my western shoreline and built 87 luxury homes on it. He called it Pequot Shores Estates. The buyers were almost all from Boston and Hartford and New York. They paid $1 to $3 million each for lakefront views. What none of them quite understood, what their real estate agents had not explained, is that under New Hampshire common law, the owner of the lake bed owns the lake. The shoreline owners have no riparian rights unless those rights are conveyed in writing. The Holbrook family had never conveyed a thing. For 26 years, my family had allowed the homeowners to use the lake as a courtesy. We had let them swim. We had let them paddleboard. We had let them anchor a few small craft off their docks. We had asked nothing in return. We considered ourselves good neighbors. In 2015, a 43-year-old Greenwich transplant named Madeline Whitcomb was elected president of the Pequot Shores Estates Homeowners Association. She had moved into the largest house in the subdivision in 2014 with her husband Wendell, a retired bond trader from Boston. She wore platinum hair and Lululemon and carried a J.P. Morgan tote bag everywhere she went. She drank her coffee on a lakefront deck and watched my Lightning sail past every morning at 6:15. In 2018, she filed her first complaint about my sailing schedule. In 2021, she filed her 7th. In 2024, she filed her 23rd. None of the complaints went anywhere. The lake belonged to me, and the case law was 110 years old. Smith versus Goffstown, decided by the New Hampshire Supreme Court in 1934, established that the holder of the lakebed deed owns the lake, including the right to control surface use, the right to control access, and the right to refuse easement. The case had been cited in 71 subsequent New Hampshire opinions. It was not going to be overturned by an HOA newsletter from a transplant in tennis whites. In the summer of 2025, she stopped filing complaints and started picking the wrong fight. Madeline Whitcomb walked onto my dock for the first time on a Friday morning in early July. She was wearing a Vineyard Vines sundress over a designer swimsuit, oversized sunglasses, and a pair of leather Sperry topsiders that still had the price tag on the right heel. She was carrying a manila folder in her J.P. Morgan tote. The dock she walked onto was the dock my grandfather had built in 1947. It is on my deeded property. She did not knock. She did not ask. She walked. I was sitting on the dock bench in my morning sailing clothes, canvas shorts, a faded blue shirt, deck shoes, drinking the last of my coffee and watching the wind on the South Cove. Mr. Holbrook. Mrs. Whitcomb. Madeline, please. Mrs. Whitcomb. The smile flickered for half a second. I had seen it before in the manila folder of HOA complaints she had filed against me. It was the smile of a woman who had spent 30 years being told yes by people who depended on her husband's bond commissions. I wanted to come down personally to discuss your morning sailing schedule. The HOA has received a number of concerns from residents. The HOA has received concerns from one resident, Mrs. Whitcomb, you. The smile tightened a quarter inch. Mr. Holbrook, the community would appreciate it if you could begin your sailing activities after 9 in the morning. That allows residents to enjoy their dockside coffee without the sail blocking the sun. Mrs. Whitcomb, this is my lake. I sail when I sail. Mr. Holbrook, there is a community accommodation we should be able to reach. There is not. She let the silence sit. I let it sit longer. The loon on the South Cove called twice. A breeze moved across the water and lifted a few loose strands of her platinum hair. Mr. Holbrook, the HOA is prepared to take this matter to the next level. Mrs. Whitcomb, the HOA does not have a next level. Your residents do not have riparian rights. I have explained this in writing to 4 previous HOA presidents. I am explaining it again to you now. I will explain it once more, slowly, so that there is no confusion. The lake is mine. I will sail when I sail. You are welcome to swim. You are welcome to paddle. You are not welcome to schedule my mornings. She closed the manila folder. She set it on the bench beside me. The folder had a typed label on the front that read, Morning Sailing, H. Complaints, Volume 3. She walked off the dock. The smile was gone by the time she reached her own property line. I let her go. I picked up the folder. I carried it to the kitchen table. Connie was making blueberry pancakes. She looked at the folder. She looked at me. She raised one eyebrow. Coffee deck blocked by sail, I said. For the 6th time. For the 6th time. She poured me a cup. She did not say anything else. That night, I called Lila Brimblecombe at her home in Conway. Lila had been my attorney for 32 years. She picked up on the second ring. Wes. Lila, Whitcomb walked onto my dock today. With or without a folder? With. Volume 3? Volume 3. Lila was quiet for a moment. Then she said the sentence she had been holding for me for almost a year. Wes, I think it's time we accelerate the project. Can you come to my office Monday morning at 8? Yes. Bring Connie. Bring the family. There are things we need to discuss. I drove to Lila's office in Conway at 7:45 on Monday morning, with Connie in the passenger seat and a manila folder of my own on the back seat. The folder contained 26 years of HOA correspondence, photographs of every dock incursion Madeline had attempted, a survey map of Lake Pemaquat, annotated by my grandfather in 1956, and a copy of Smith versus Goffstown, the 1934 New Hampshire Supreme Court case that had established the lakebed ownership doctrine I was relying on. Lila met us at the door. She was 61 years old, silver-haired, in a gray linen blazer. She had set up her conference room with 3 pots of coffee and a stack of pastries from the bakery on Main Street. Garrett was already at the table. He had driven up from Portsmouth at 5 a.m. Tate was on speakerphone from his farm in Maine. Lila closed the door. Wes, I've been working on something for 3 years. I have not told you because I needed certainty before I brought it to you. I have certainty now. She slid a thick blue folder across the table. The Pequot Shores Marina LLC, the 7-acre parcel on the South Shore. It is owned by an LLC with 3 shareholders. 51% is held by the Pequot Shores HOA, controlled in practice by Madeline and Wendell Whitcomb. 49% is held by Edwina Quirk, age 88, and her husband Hiram Quirk, age 91, of Tamworth, New Hampshire. The Quirks founded the marina in 1976. They sold the controlling interest to the HOA in 1998 when Drennan built the subdivision. They kept their minority share. Connie set her coffee down. "Lila, where is this going?" Lila smiled. The LLC operating agreement, drafted by the Quirks' attorney in 1976, contains a provision that almost no one bothers to read. Section 12, subsection F. If the majority shareholder breaches fiduciary duty through self-dealing, undisclosed compensation, or improper diversion of LLC assets, the minority shareholder may petition a New Hampshire court to force the dissolution and sale of the LLC at court-supervised fair market value. The minority shareholder has the right of first refusal to purchase the entire LLC at that valuation. I leaned forward. "Lila, has Madeline Whitcomb breached fiduciary duty?" Wes. Madeline Whitcomb has been collecting $84,000 a year in undisclosed consulting fees from the Marina LLC since 2017. She has also been using a marina dock slip, the largest one, Slip 7, to berth a 48-foot yacht owned by her husband, free of charge, since 2019. The retail value of Slip 7 is $2,800 a year. The total improper compensation to Madeline and Wendell Whitcomb over 8 years is approximately $720,000. Tate, on speakerphone, said, "Jesus." Lila kept going. The Quirks have known about all of this for 2 years. They have been collecting documentation. They have been waiting for the right partner to bring this to court. I approached them 3 years ago, on your behalf. I have visited them at their kitchen table in Tamworth 11 times. They like you, Wes. They knew your father. They have agreed, in principle, to sell their 49% to you for $100,000, and to file the fiduciary breach petition the same day, forcing the sale of the Whitcombs' 51% at court-supervised valuation. We estimate that valuation at $1.1 million. Connie's hand found mine under the table. "Lila, what is the next step?" "The next step is that I need you to drive to Tamworth this afternoon. Edwina has made tea. They want to meet you in person." I drove to Tamworth that afternoon. I drank tea on the Quirks' back porch overlooking a small pond. Edwina was 88 years old, white-haired, in a wool cardigan. Hiram was 91 and used a cane. They had been married 63 years. They had founded the marina with $2,000 and a hand-built dock in 1976. They liked me. I liked them. We shook hands at 5 o'clock. The closing was set for a Saturday morning 4 weeks later, August 23rd. I left Tamworth at 6 p.m. and drove home through the white birches with my hand resting on the steering wheel, like a man who has been handed a key to a door he did not know existed. The next 3 weeks, Madeline Whitcomb escalated. She organized a flotilla. On a Tuesday morning in mid-July, 6 HOA-owned motorboats and 3 personal jet skis appeared on the lake at 5:50 a.m., circling the dock where my Lightning was rigged for launch. The lead boat was a 30-foot Sea Ray, driven by Wendell Whitcomb in a polo shirt and aviator sunglasses. The other operators were HOA board members and their adult sons. They throttled their engines down to idle and waited for me to launch. I launched at 6:05. I sailed straight through them. The Lightning is a 15-foot wooden boat with a single mainsail and a centerboard. She tacks tighter than any motorboat can corner. I rounded the south buoy in 42 seconds. The flotilla could not keep pace. By 6:15, I was a mile down the lake, alone, with the morning mist breaking apart around the bow of Felicity. I sailed for 90 minutes. I came back to my dock at 7:30. The flotilla had dispersed. I tied up. I went inside and made breakfast. I did not tell Connie about the flotilla until she found a photograph on the local newspaper website at noon. The photograph showed me on Felicity, alone, in golden light, with 6 wakes converging behind me from a respectful distance. The caption said, "Who owns the lake?" Connie put the newspaper on the kitchen table. Wes. Yes. They look like idiots. They do. You look like a man with a sailboat. I am a man with a sailboat. She kissed the top of my head. The next week, Madeline filed a complaint with the New Hampshire Department of Safety, claiming I was operating watercraft recklessly and endangering swimmers and recreational users. The complaint went to the Marine Patrol office in Wolfboro. The captain of that office was a 61-year-old former Coast Guard chief named Reuben Sutherland. Reuben and I had graduated from Kingswood Regional High School in the same class. We had played hockey together. We had hunted deer together every November for 28 years. Reuben drove out to my dock the morning the complaint landed. He sat down on the dock bench in the same spot Madeline had sat in 3 weeks earlier. He drank a cup of coffee. He read the complaint aloud, slowly, in his slow Yankee voice. Wes, this complaint says you have endangered swimmers. Who is in the water at 6 a.m. on Pemaquat? No one, Reuben. This complaint says you are operating recklessly. Have you tipped a boat in 50 years? No, Reuben. This complaint says you have been observed sailing under the influence. At 6 a.m., Reuben. He folded the complaint into a paper airplane and threw it onto the lake. I'll talk to her, Wes. He did. He went directly from my dock to 48 Lakefront Drive and gave Madeline Whitcomb a verbal warning under the false report statute. She told him he was a small-town hick who had been bought by my family. He laughed at her in her own driveway. That night he called me at home. Wes, she is going to call 911 on you, probably soon, probably on a Saturday so the dispatcher rotates to the day shift. I have seen her type 100 times. She is going to call. She is going to escalate the language. She is going to claim you are drunk, armed, or threatening. She is going to do it the morning before her husband's birthday party, so the whole HOA is on the docks to watch the show. What do you want me to do? Wes, keep sailing. I will be on the water. We will let her bury herself. I hung up. I sat on the porch with Connie. The crickets were loud in the white birches. The lake at dusk had gone the color of an old penny. Wes, he's right. I know. She is going to make her mistake at 6:02 on a Saturday morning, and we are going to be ready. We are. Tate drove up from Maine on the Sunday before closing. He brought 2 cases of tomato sauce from his farm, a roast chicken from a Friday market in Portland, and a question I had not been expecting. Dad, are you sure? We were sitting on the porch. Connie was reading. Garrett was on his way from Portsmouth. The lake was quiet. Sure of what, son? Buying the marina, owning it, running it, becoming the man who runs the place at the south end of the lake. You have been the man who sails on the lake for 60 years. Are you sure you want to be the man who docks other boats on it? I thought about that for a minute. Tate has always asked the right questions. Tate, I have spent 60 years sailing on a lake that belongs to my family. I have shared it freely with anyone who asked. The HOA decided that was not enough. They decided they wanted to schedule my mornings, dictate my speeds, and bully a woman in her late 80s out of the small business she built with her hands. I am not going to let that happen. Owning the marina is not about controlling the lake. It is about making sure no one else can ever decide who gets to sail on it. Tate nodded slowly. Plus, I said, I have plans. Plans. Slip rates 28% below current HOA rates. Open to every resident of Carroll County, not just Pemaquat shores. A junior sailing program for any kid who wants to learn, free of charge. A cafe you might be interested in running, if your tomatoes can spare a Saturday or two. Tate's eyebrows moved a quarter inch. Dad, think about it. Garrett arrived at sunset with a portfolio of drawings under his arm. He had designed, on his own time, over 3 years, a complete rebuild of the marina docks. Floating composite slips, solar lighting, ADA-compliant ramps, a wooden boardwalk that connected the marina to a small public park on the North Shore, a park my family had donated to the town in 1973. He had drawn it all in pencil on linen graph paper, the way my father had taught him to draw. Dad, I want to design the new marina. I want to do it for free. Garrett, that's $100,000 of work. Dad, Grandpa built me a sailboat. I want to build you a marina. Let me do it. I did not argue. That night, the four of us, Wes, Connie, Garrett, Tate, sat at the kitchen table with the drawings spread out. Connie made hot chocolate. Tate broke off a corner of dark chocolate from the cupboard. Garrett pointed at the drawings and explained each section. The boardwalk to the public park, the composite slips, the solar lights, the ADA-compliant ramps, the covered launch ramp for the junior sailing program. Around 11, Connie said, Cyrus would be jumping out of his rocking chair right now. I said, I know. We did not say anything else for a long minute. Then Tate said, Dad, I want to run the cafe. I have been thinking about it since you mentioned it. I have a partner in Maine who could cover the farm for the summer. I have menu ideas. I have suppliers. I want in. I looked at my younger son. He had grown up on this lake. He had learned to swim off the same dock his grandfather had built. He had taught himself to crew the Lightning when he was 12. Tate. Dad. Welcome aboard. He smiled the slow Holbrook smile his grandfather had taught him, without ever knowing he had taught him. It was the smile that said yes, without saying anything. Lila called me at 6 the next morning. The closing was set, Saturday, August 23rd, 6:15 a.m. The Quirks would sign in their kitchen in Tamworth. Lila would transmit the executed papers electronically. The Pequot Shores Marina LLC would be majority mine at 6:15. The week before the closing, the entire plan came together. Lila spent 4 days drafting the operational transition orders. Garrett spent 2 days finalizing his marina design. Tate drove back to Maine to harvest enough tomatoes, basil, and zucchini to launch a Saturday morning farmer's table at the Marina Cafe. Connie spent 3 afternoons quietly reaching out to friends on the Pequot Shores side who had been embarrassed by Madeline for years. There were several of them. The most useful was a 66-year-old retired schoolteacher named Eleanor Tisdale. Eleanor drove out to my dock on a Wednesday afternoon in a sun hat and a faded denim shirt. She was carrying a notebook and a folder of HOA correspondence she had been quietly collecting for 3 years. Mr. Holbrook, my husband and I bought our home in 2003. We did not know what we were getting into. Madeline Whitcomb has run this HOA like a private fiefdom for 9 years. There are 41 residents on my list who would vote her out tomorrow if there were a viable candidate. I am willing to be that candidate. I looked at her. Mrs. Tisdale, you understand what that morning will look like. Mr. Holbrook, I understand more than you think. I have a master's degree in education and 32 years of experience in classroom de-escalation. I have watched Madeline Whitcomb harass 3 families out of this subdivision. I have written down every incident. I am ready. She handed me the notebook. It was dense with names, dates, and short paragraph summaries. I called Lila that evening and added Eleanor's notebook to the case file. Lila said, Wes, this is excellent. The receivership petition we file Monday morning will name Madeline and Wendell as defendants. Eleanor's documentation will accelerate everything. The legal preparation was the easy part. The emotional preparation was harder. I sat on the porch every evening of that week. I drank 1 bourbon. I watched the loons on the South Cove. I thought about my father. I thought about Asa Holbrook in 1857, signing a deed for a lake nobody else wanted because he wanted his grandchildren to sail. I thought about Cyrus in 1962, in his workshop, hand-bending pine ribs and steam for the boat that would carry me through 6 decades of mornings. I thought about Madeline Whitcomb, who had never once stood on a New Hampshire dock at 5:30 a.m., with a coffee in her hand and the mist rising off the water, and who therefore did not understand a single thing about why my family had refused to sell. She was about to learn. Reuben called me Friday evening with one final logistical update. He had a kind of administrative thoroughness most people never noticed in him because he hid it under a deer-hunting drawl. He had spent 31 years quietly making sure every detail in his patrol jurisdiction was right. Tonight was no exception. Wes, I have called the dispatcher who will be on duty Saturday morning. I have advised her, without telling her why, that any 911 call regarding a Holbrook sailing activity should be flagged for my direct response. I am taking the patrol boat out at 5:30. Cassidy will be at your dock. We have her on tape from her 2 previous false reports. If she calls, we have her. The state troopers in Wolfboro have been put on quiet standby for noon, in case the husband decides to do something stupid. Thank you, Reuben. Wes, get some sleep. I did not sleep. I sat on the porch with Connie. Lake Pemaquat at midnight is the quietest place I have ever known. The loons stopped calling at 10. The wind died at 11. By midnight, there was nothing but the lap of small waves against the dock pilings and the slow turn of the stars above the white birches. At 4 a.m. I stood up. I made coffee. I rigged Felicity in the dark. The sun came up at 5:42. Madeline Whitcomb did not know any of this. She knew that I had refused her dock conversation in early July. She knew that I had refused to stop sailing. She knew that the flotilla had failed. She knew that the Marine patrol captain had laughed at her in her driveway. She knew, by Friday afternoon, that her latest Facebook smear campaign had been deleted by the HOA board. She did not know about the quirks. She did not know about the operating agreement. She did not know about the consulting fees. She did not know that her husband's free dock slip was about to become a federal exhibit. She did not know that her HOA presidency was 3 weeks from a no-confidence vote. She had her husband's 52nd birthday party scheduled for Saturday afternoon. 200 guests, caterer from Wolfboro, live band, white tents on the lawn down to the lake. She wanted me out of the picture by then. On Friday evening at 7 p.m., she walked onto my dock for the second time in 7 weeks. She was wearing tennis whites and a Pemaquat Shores Yacht Club polo. Her platinum hair was newly highlighted. She carried no folder this time. She carried a typed letter on HOA letterhead. Mr. Holbrook. Mrs. Whitcomb. I have something I need you to sign. I read the letter. It was a single page. It demanded that I cease all sailing activity on Saturday, August 23rd, between the hours of 5:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. It said the prohibition was in the interest of community harmony during the Whitcomb family celebration. I handed her the letter back. Mrs. Whitcomb, I will be sailing at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, exactly as I have sailed every Saturday in August for 47 years. You are welcome to celebrate Mr. Whitcomb's birthday on your own property. You are not welcome on my dock. Please leave. Mr. Holbrook, you are going to ruin my husband's party. Mrs. Whitcomb, I am going to sail my boat. If that ruins your party, the party was not very well planned. Her face hardened. Mr. Holbrook, you have no idea what you are about to do. Mrs. Whitcomb, with respect, I have a very clear idea. She turned. She walked off the dock. The Sperry topsiders left small scuffs on the cedar planks my grandfather had laid in 1947. She got into her white Mercedes. She drove the 400 yards back to her property at exactly the speed limit. Connie came out onto the dock 5 minutes later with 2 glasses of bourbon. She handed me one. Wes. Yes. She's going to call. She's going to call. At 6:12. At 6:12. We sat on the dock bench. The sun set over the South Cove. A loon called once. The bourbon was Maker's Mark. I drank half of it slowly. I did not sleep that night. I did not need to. I sat in the rocking chair on the porch with Cyrus's coffee mug in my hand and watched the moon move across the lake. At 3 a.m., Connie came out of the bedroom in her bathrobe and sat down beside me. She did not say anything. She put her hand on mine. We watched the sky lighten together. At 5:30, Reuben's patrol boat slid quietly into position 200 feet off Madeline's dock. He killed his lights. He sat in the dark with his coffee thermos and his radio off. Cassidy Wyman pulled into my driveway at 5:45 in an unmarked Marine Patrol pickup. She walked down to the dock. She nodded at me. She drank a cup of coffee Connie brought her. She did not say a word. The sun was coming up. The morning was on its way. I launched Felicity at 6:05. The wind was a steady 7 knots out of the north. The lake was glass flat in the lee of the eastern shore. The sky was a pale, cold blue, with the first edge of gold at the horizon. The lightning glided away from the dock at 5 knots, a small white wedge of mainsail against the water. I sailed past the South Cove. I sailed past the boundary buoy my father had installed in 1968. I sailed past the Whitcomb dock at a respectful distance of 120 feet. The 48-foot yacht, tied to slip 7 of the Pemaquat Shores Marina, was visible to my right. Its lines were neatly coiled. Its deck was empty. Madeline Whitcomb was standing on her own dock with a coffee cup in her left hand and a cell phone in her right. I did not look at her. I sailed past. Behind me, I knew, Reuben Sutherland was watching her from 200 feet of open water. I could see his shadow on the bow of the patrol boat in the corner of my peripheral vision. I rounded the buoy at 6:11. I came about. I sailed back along the same line. At 6:12, Madeline lifted the cell phone to her ear. What Madeline did not know was that her phone was being recorded, not by her own service, but by a perfectly legal one-party consent recording on Cassidy Wyman's body camera, which had been activated the moment Madeline lifted the phone. Madeline said, "Operator, this is Madeline Whitcomb at 48 Lakefront Drive. There is a man sailing a wooden vessel recklessly on the lake. He has no safety equipment. He is operating under the influence." She listened. The dispatcher asked her a question. She said, "Yes, he has been threatening to ram another boat. He has been yelling profanities at my son. He is endangering swimmers." There were no swimmers. There was no sun on the dock. I had not yelled. I had not approached anyone. I was sailing in a straight line. The dispatcher told her to stay on the line. Madeline paced her dock. Her free hand fluttered. Reuben's patrol boat, still dark, still silent, drifted forward toward her dock. At 6:14, Cassidy walked down my dock and gestured for me to come in. I came in. I tied Felicity at the cleat. I stepped onto the dock. Cassidy handed me a clipboard. "Mr. Holbrook, Mrs. Whitcomb is currently filing her third false 911 report in 71 days. Under R.S.A. 270A, that is now a Class B felony. Captain Sutherland will be processing her in about 90 seconds. He has asked me to inform you that the report is on his official patrol log." "Thank you, Officer Wyman." Wes. Cassidy. She smiled a small Yankee smile. My phone vibrated in my breast pocket. I pulled it out. It was Lila Brimblecombe. I answered. "Lila." "Wes, the closing has finalized. The papers are executed. As of 6:15 this morning, you are the majority owner of Pequot Shores Marina, LLC. The minority interest is held by Edwina and Hiram Quirk. The fiduciary breach petition has been filed with Carroll County Superior Court. A copy is being served on the Whitcomb HOA at noon today." I looked at the lake. I looked at Reuben's patrol boat pulling up to Madeline Whitcomb's dock. I looked at Cassidy beside me on my own family dock. "Lila, what time is it?" "It is 6:16, Wes." "Lila." "Yes." That was fast. She laughed. I had not heard Lila Brimblecombe laugh that way in 32 years. "Wes, we have been working on this for 3 years. The last 15 minutes were just the part where the music played." I hung up. By 6:20, Reuben Sutherland had tied his patrol boat to Madeline Whitcomb's dock and stepped out with a clipboard. Madeline was still on the 911 line. He waited for her to finish. She told the dispatcher she would meet the responding officer at her property. The dispatcher told her the responding officer was already at her dock. She turned. Reuben tipped his hat. "Mrs. Whitcomb, I am Captain Reuben Sutherland of the New Hampshire Marine Patrol. I am responding to your 911 call. Can you describe the vessel that is endangering swimmers?" "There, right there, the white sailboat." "That is Mr. Wes Holbrook in a 62-year-old wooden Lightning sailboat. I observed him at 6:05 launching from his dock. I have been on the water since 5:30. He has been sailing in a straight tacking pattern, well clear of every other dock on the lake. There are no swimmers in the water. There is no son of yours on the dock. He has not yelled. He has not threatened any vessel. He has not consumed any intoxicating beverage." "How would you know what he's been doing?" "Mrs. Whitcomb, I have been watching him with binoculars since 5:30 a.m. I have also been watching you. I observed you place a 911 call at 6:12 and 40 seconds. I observed you make 4 specific false statements during that call. Under New Hampshire RSA 270A, that constitutes your third false report to law enforcement in 71 days. The third false report is a Class B felony." Her face went the color of the Lightning's mainsail. "Mrs. Whitcomb, please step away from the dock railing. Please place your phone in your front jacket pocket. You are not under arrest at this moment. You are being formally cited. You will appear before Carroll County District Court on Monday morning at 9. At 6:25, Lila Brimblecombe drove up to the Pequot Shores Marina parking lot in her gray Volvo. She walked into the marina office with a leather portfolio. The HOA's marina manager, a 38-year-old kid named Tucker Plimpton, was just unlocking the door. Lila handed him 3 documents. Tucker read them. Tucker called Wendell Whitcomb on his cell phone. Wendell did not answer. Wendell was, at that moment, sleeping off the previous night's bourbon in the master bedroom of 48 Lakefront Drive. By 7 a.m., Tucker had read the documents 3 times. By 7:15, he had walked the length of every marina slip and verified that the legal ownership of the LLC had changed effective 6:15. He sat down at his desk. He emailed his resignation to Wendell at 7:32. At 9 a.m., I drove to the marina. Connie was with me. Garrett was on his way from Portsmouth. Tate was driving down from Maine. Lila was already at the marina office with 3 boxes of stationery and a sample of the operational policy I had asked her to draft. I walked to the office. I looked around the small wooden room. The desk was Tucker's. The walls had photographs of Madeline at past Pequot Shores fundraising events, a Pequot Shores Estates logo plaque, and a bulletin board of HOA-only access rules. I took the photographs down. I took the plaque down. I took the bulletin board down. I leaned them in a stack by the door for pickup. I hung up a new sign Connie had hand-painted that morning at the kitchen table. The sign said, Holbrook Family Marina, open to all Carroll County residents. Below the words was a small drawing of a lightning sailboat with the hull number 4847. I sat down at the desk. I picked up the marina phone. I called the local newspaper. This is Wes Holbrook at the new Holbrook Family Marina on Lake Pequot. Effective this morning, the marina is under new ownership. Slip rates are reduced 28%. The marina is now open to every resident of Carroll County, not just Pequot Shores Estates. We are also launching a free junior sailing program for any kid who wants to learn. Would you like to send a reporter? The editor said yes. He sent a reporter. The reporter took a photograph of me at the new sign at 10:40. The headline on Sunday morning's paper read, Holbrook buys Pequot Marina. Open to all, rates slashed, free lessons for local kids. Madeline Whitcomb did not attend her husband's birthday party that afternoon. Wendell did not attend either. The 200 guests stood under the white tents on the lawn down to the lake. They drank champagne. They watched a 62-year-old wooden sailboat tacking lazily across the cove. They wondered what had happened. Most of them figured it out before the cake was cut. The receivership petition filed Monday morning was granted in 19 days. The Pequot Shores Estates HOA was placed under court oversight for 18 months. Madeline Whitcomb pleaded guilty to 4 counts, 3 false 911 reports, 1 count of fiduciary breach, and 1 count of tax evasion. She received 28 months in state prison and was ordered to pay back $720,000 to the Marina LLC. Wendell Whitcomb cooperated. He testified against his wife in exchange for a misdemeanor plea on the tax evasion. He received 6 months of home confinement, which he served on a boat moored in Mystic, Connecticut, because Madeline refused to speak to him during the proceedings. Eleanor Tisdale was elected HOA president in a special vote 3 weeks after the closing. The vote was 61-9. The 9 no votes were Madeline's Bridge Club. Eleanor's first action was to send me a handwritten note thanking the Holbrook family for decades of patience with our community. Her second action was to repeal 27 Madeline-era HOA bylaws. Her third was to amend the HOA covenants to formally recognize the Holbrook family's lake ownership. The Holbrook Family Marina opened for full operations on the first weekend of September. Slip rates were exactly 28% below the previous HOA rates. Tate took over the cafe and put on the chalkboard menu a caprese salad made with tomatoes he had brought down from Maine that morning. Garrett's new dock designs were approved for spring construction. The junior sailing program enrolled 41 local kids in its first season. The adaptive sailing program for veterans with PTSD enrolled 11, in partnership with American Legion Post 18 in Wolfboro. The first annual Pequot Regatta was held on the last Saturday in September. 47 boats registered. Lightning hull number 4847, 62 years old, hand-built by Cyrus Holbrook, led the start. Connie crewed. I called every tack. We won by 4 boat lengths. The trophy was a small bronze loon Garrett had cast in Portsmouth. It sits on the windowsill above my desk. That winter, I established the Cyrus Holbrook Sailing Trust. The trust is endowed by 20% of the marina's annual revenue. It pays for sailboat lessons for any kid in Carroll County who wants them, regardless of family income, ability, or HOA membership. In the first year, the trust enrolled 24 kids. In the second, 67. The trust's logo is a wooden lightning, hand-drawn by Garrett, with my father's hull number under the sail. Edwina and Hiram Quirk came to the regatta. They sat on lawn chairs at the south end of the dock and waved at every boat that passed. Hiram, 91 years old, leaned on his cane and told me 3 different times that we picked the right partner. Edwina handed me a paper bag with a small Wedgwood teapot inside. She said it had been her mother's. She said her mother had told her, in 1936, that you give a Wedgwood teapot only to people who understand what a kitchen is for. I keep the teapot on the kitchen counter above the coffee maker. Connie likes it. On the morning after the regatta, I sat on the dock in the dawn light with Cyrus's coffee mug in my hand. The sky was pale. The mist was rising. A loon called from the South Cove. Felicity was tied at the cleat. Connie was inside making blueberry pancakes. I did not say anything. I did not need to. The lake had been ours for 168 years. It would be ours for as long as a Holbrook remembered how to rig a sail at 6 in the morning. Connie came out with 2 cups of coffee. She sat down beside me on the dock bench. The mist rose. The loon called again. Wes. Yes. Your father would have liked the regatta. He would have called every tack himself and told me I was doing it wrong. She laughed. The laugh carried across the cove. Somewhere on the far side of the lake, another loon answered. The lake at sunrise has a particular way of holding sound and giving it back to you slowly. The Holbrook family had been listening to it for 5 generations. Madeline Whitcomb had never once been willing to be there at 6 in the morning. That was the whole story. If a Madeline has ever decided your family's lake, your family's road, or your family's quiet was a thing she could schedule, drop your story below. Subscribe so you don't miss next week's story. Justice doesn't always look like a courtroom. Sometimes it looks like a wooden sailboat at 6 o'clock in the morning on the lake your great-great-grandfather bought from a logging company in 1857, moving slowly in a straight line, while the woman who called 911 on the dock learns that she is the one who is about to be served.
Friends, here's the thing about Madeline Whitcomb. She didn't lose because West Holbrook was richer than her. She lost because she didn't read the law. New Hampshire common law has held since 1934 that the owner of a lake bed owns the lake. The Holbrook family had owned Lake Premicourt in fee since 1857. Madeline had owned a lakefront home since 2014. She thought money on the dock was the same as a deed in the courthouse. It is not. The strongest men in any neighborhood are the ones who already have the deeds. They have surveys. They have the case law. They have attorneys. They have attorneys who have been working on the file for 3 years before anyone in the HOA knew there was a file. West Holbrook did not win because he was angry. He won because he was patient, because his attorney was patient, because an 88-year-old couple in Temperate had been waiting 2 years to find the right partner, and because his father, dead 5 years, have handed his son a wooden sailboard that taught Wes everything he needed to know about going slow and tackling truth. If a Madeline had ever picked the wrong fight with your family, their story below. Subscribe so you don't miss next week. Justice is patient, and is usually showed up at 6 in the morning, on the water,